Tesla released FSD 12.3 to its employees and 100,000 select drivers, and it's getting rave reviews. Michael Dell, CEO of Dell, tweeted, "Super impressive. Like a human driver it is, amazed I am." Is it really human-like? What is the technology behind that makes it human-like? Let's dive in. So here we'll see Chuck Cook, a longtime one of the top testers of the Tesla FSD system. He's been testing all the versions, and then here he has a video.
Straight. Let's see if it does it anyway. What's it gonna do? Okay. Now it honored the turn lane it was in, and now it's gonna have to do a 3-point turn to get out of this. This is
Let me skip forward on this.
It's not a robotaxi yet. I know that.
Sorry.
It was waiting for the dog. There's some dogs over here. Oh my gosh! Look, I didn't touch anything. It was waiting for the dogs. Now look, I got another pedestrian who's gonna walk in front of me. It's honoring him. It is finding its way. Guys, I didn't touch the accelerator there. I actually thought it was stuck. I think it was waiting on the dogs. It did a U-turn all by, guys, that is robotaxi re-navigation right there.
Okay, so Chuck is amazed. He's previously just recently said it's a game changer. So let's take a look then at the technology behind this capability. So Michael Dell says human-like, and Chuck Cook, longtime tester, says human-like. So what does more human-like mean? So it's a new U-turns with new speed bumps, all these capabilities. And it generally just feels more natural and safe. People are saying that it's passing the nervous passenger test, like a grandma who doesn't like it. So we have Tesla FSD started around 2021 and before, and it had crude visualizations of it and a different technology system, which we'll discuss. They had traditional coding, so they had all these rules that would say, if a stop sign do this, if it's, other things do that. 300,000 or more rules in it. They had AI going from the cameras, it's a camera-only system, to feed it in. And you see this diagram of it, and they would figure out the lanes and then what's in the road, and then it would plan with rules to do things. So that was the 2021 FSD 10 and before. And then we get up to 2023, early part of it, and then we have version 11. And there we have AI replacing the planning part, still having rules in the occupancy and lane sections, right? We had AI on two ends with some level of coding still. And it's gathering data across the entire fleet of millions of cars. And then from that, it's deciding what to do. Like Chuck's saying, okay, what are they going to do? Are they going to stop for the people? Are they going to make a turn? It has to decide, just like a human driver. So now we have version 12. And this is where work that they did over the past 2 years, but was implemented late last year, was to fully replace all parts with AI neural nets. So no more rules. It would figure it out for itself. Figure out, I can do a U-turn. I can copy what other drivers are doing, the best drivers, because it's feeding them the best driving clips, millions of clips. We looked at just one. The Tesla system is training on millions and millions of clips. So that takes a lot of compute. And it's merged together with full AI. So now that's why there's a step change to the new 12.3. An example of this, and we saw that crude look of how it was mapping the roads. It now is looking at roads with 3D rendering. So this is 12.3. It's reconstructing from the customer's fleet when it's learning with hyper-real visualizations of it. The AI can generate realistic camera shots. So the 8 cameras that the systems use in every car, and then AI. On the right is not real video images. It is computer generated images. If we had the look at the full talk from the head of AI from Tesla, it would be playing, looking like you're looking at real live video from the cameras, just like on the left. But instead, it's AI making that. So it's like the ChatGPT large language models predicting the next word. Here is predicting what is the next 0.3 seconds of video, one frame of video, frame after frame, 30 frames per second. If you do 10 seconds, 300 frames of video on 8 cameras, right? So it's totally imagining, here's the road ahead. And if I turn or if I do something else, it's saying, what does that option look like? If I start doing something, am I running over those people? Am I running over those dogs? And so it says, I don't want to do that. So it doesn't proceed. This goes to the data part where they said last year they needed to get to 100 exaflops by October this year. Elon Musk last night just tweeted that they're no longer compute constrained, and based on their purchases of NVIDIA compute chips, they are probably already fully implemented at 100 exaflops. And you see the slope, they're going to get more and more compute. And this amount of data is to process millions of videos per day with all the modeling of, like, I'm projecting and analyzing and making my own video to predict every action on those millions of different cases. So without computer constraint, it's basically, what will the rate of progress be? Will it be like releasing the Kraken, where Tesla AI just goes even faster, like the move from 12.2 to 12.3 might be a minor step up relative to how fast they could be going now, but we don't know. So here's an example of the old system, which the AI is also handling, but just to show the complexity of what's going on. So the system has to determine the lanes. Occupancy is, are there dogs, people, other cars, and what are the moving objects, and then determine what the actions are. And it has to figure out the real world trajectory of things in 1 to 5 milliseconds per action, and then make a plan for the car and act upon it in 100 microseconds. So actually it's 0.1 milliseconds. And all this data and training and information is coming from about 6 million cars right now. Even the cars without activated FSD are sending data back so they can find all the best drivers and do what they do and avoid doing what all the worst drivers are doing. So that is the complexity of what's going on, but into a pure AI system gathering all these videos. So Randy, you have any?
So, well, we've had Elon predict just the other day. Now, he's kind of an insider, so he kind of has some inside information. So we could guess that while his predictions have commonly been a little bit early or late or something, I guess late, he did predict the other day that they would be putting out 3 new product improvements or fixes every 2 weeks. And by that, I'm sure he means major. He did enumerate some of those. He said that coming up would be the parking would be one of those changes over the next 6 weeks. So every 2 weeks, there would be 3 changes. And so one would be parking, one would be smart summon, which I'm sure you've played with, I've played with. It wasn't very smart. So this is going to be a fix. He also talked about having reverse. And then one of the complaints on the one that's out there right now has been that sometimes it goes too slow. It goes 3 miles under the set speed, or it's at a parking lot and it's going so slow. You just want to make it go faster. So that's one of the ones that's going to fix. Now, one of the complaints from the X community that's been popping up over and over again has been that sometimes it takes a corner a little too close to the curb. And sometimes it's also a little too close to the curb when it's running down a lane on a freeway or a major highway. So that is also something I would anticipate would be fixed probably in the first, like the 12.3.1, because that's been a major complaint that's been all over the place. Other than that, other than those items, the product is working. We don't have ours yet. I don't. Have you got yours yet? Your 12.3?
And no, I have not, but I don't have a Tesla car yet.
Oh,
I
that's
have
right. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay,
I need a car first.
Yeah, so we haven't received our 12.3 yet, so I haven't been able to test it. But I've talked to a number of people on my main channel, and also watched a lot of the videos. I'm sure you have as well. And the overall emphasis is very human-like, very smooth, seems to be acting like it's actually making decisions. That seems to be the crazy part, is that it's kind of reasoning. It's not even just making fast decisions. It is looking at a circumstance and then choosing a line of approach that a human that was reasoning out the problem might take.
Right. So that goes to the technology that we're talking about, that it has an AI planner. It has to respond in 0.1 seconds. Certain things need to be responded even in milliseconds, like 5 milliseconds. I mean, that, less than the 100 milliseconds for that planning move, because it has to respond fast enough to do emergency braking and that kind of thing. And so the fact that we're getting to 99% good, it means that all that structure, architecture is proving out. Their approach is working. And also that, so then by adding in more data and analysis, if they're no longer changing the structure, because the structure is now all AI, then there should not be major regression, as long as their quality control processes are good, where they only give it the good videos to learn from the new thing. Okay, learn how to drive in reverse, and they already have that in releases that they're probably testing with the smaller set of employees, the quality control testers. So by saying that it's going to be out in 2 weeks and confirmed by Tesla engineers and the AI lead, means that they know for them that it's working, driving in reverse, all these things. So it's not like they have to develop it. It's in the queue, 3 versions deep that they're working on, and then ready to release. So just a question of confirming everything's really good, and then nothing has gone backwards, and they release it, ensure it's still safe. So that is why Elon's saying by May, but not just Elon, other engineers and stuff are talking about perhaps getting to Robotaxi complete software by June, July. Not regulatory approved, but getting to the point where it's doing all the actions. The people who don't believe it can just say, okay, here's a list. There are people tracking all the capabilities and saying, here's the checklist, 30, 40 items, 50 items, and saying, what is it still not being able to do? Still having certain trouble with maybe potholes or something like that, or more of that the reverse driving being a major task. But if you start saying, okay, I have addressed all the major tasks and they're all at some at 100%, some at 90%, then people don't have to take someone's word on it. It'll be like, okay, it's doing all the capabilities.
Right.
And compared to other systems, Ford, Volkswagen, Toyota, Honda, those other systems currently do not have any city streets driving capability. They're doing some driver assist on highway, and often in limited scenarios. Tesla has to remerge their highway with street driving into the system. Currently, the most advanced system is on the city streets, and because autopilot has been so good on highways, it hasn't incorporated that. But they'll merge that together, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 releases, for a complete solution. So for people who are waiting, we'll see. Once we get the next 3 releases, how close are we to a fully realized system?
Yeah. So I have my own list of the items that I think will be telling. And the interesting thing is that these items have been checked off quite nicely over the last few days. So one that I've talked about for a long time is complex intersections with lots of pedestrians. And there's been a couple of different individuals who've shown some videos of very complex. Now, not Indian, the country India, not like thousands of people crossing in all different directions at once with scooters and cars coming in. But it may be possible because they have been showing, sometimes 50 pedestrians in these crosswalks where you have the crosswalks going not only vertically, but across the middle of the intersection. And the car figured it out and aggressively it inched its way through until it was able to go in a very human-like way. Another thing that's been on my list has been the ability of the car to understand human signals, like, okay, you can go, or, or no, wait a minute, or, some kind of signal, whether that's a pedestrian or whether that's inside the car. I mean, this is very, very important. You're sitting at a four-way stop of some kind, and everybody's just sitting there waiting for the other person to go because maybe you got there at exactly the same time or whatever reason, or maybe the other person is not going to move because they're checking their iPhone, but for whatever reason they go, oh no, go ahead, go. And the car is now able to recognize those kinds of symbols as well. They're picking up on that human kind of activity. That was a big one on my list. Another huge one is, of course, the Costco parking lot. And they've done a lot of videos now on Costco parking lots. And that is, how do you find a spot? How do you, you're concerned about the pedestrians everywhere, little kids and on, and cars backing up. And I mean, it's really, really a complex environment, but we've seen multiple videos now of the car acting well in parking lots. And the fourth one is roundabouts. And Bradford Ferguson, who's a regular on my channel, Bradford he says he lives in Carmel, Indiana, which is apparently a roundabout capital of the United States. And he has 40 roundabouts, 20 roundabouts near him. And he went through them 4 times. And out of those 80 tests, he only had 2 times when he had to take over. So this is pretty darn impressive.
Yeah. So the other thing is the weather. Bradford drove in the snow. Other people have been driving in rain.
Right.
And there's also driving, in dark and other conditions. So all those conditions have to be handled. So this goes down to the edge case, and then it is doing fairly well in nighttime and in adverse weather.
Yeah, so far the big misses have been, like I mentioned, the turning too close to a curb. I think they'll get that one easily. But the other one is, I would call them extreme edge cases. So where it goes into an intersection, and for some reason this city has decided that they're going to put up a light that has an arrow that's not straight and it's not left turn. It is at like an angle like this. I've never seen one in my entire life, but we had a video the other day where that was the arrow and the car did not understand what to do with that arrow. So there's going to be some extreme edge cases, which might even turn out to be something where Tesla needs to go to the city and say, hey, go to the transportation industry worldwide and say, look, we can't have unique stop signs and unique turn signs and unique any kind of signs. Any kind of a unique sign is going to be a problem if we're going to get into this autonomous world. And so I would anticipate, I've been anticipating for a very long time that part of this will be not in order to have it become fully self-driving, but long-term or even medium-term, maybe over the next year or two, there will be a lot of interaction between Tesla and transportation, governmental transportation agencies, not only in the United States, but worldwide, to try to get some conformity on curbs, conformity on signage, conformity on striping, the things that are actually turning into these edge cases.
I would say that I don't think they will do that.
Oh.
They may work toward that just for some, but they can release it without that because
No, I say they will release it without it. Yeah.
yeah, because they're um, doing things with unmarked roads, narrow roads,
Right.
driving on the shoulder. They are handling not pristine road situations, and they have to do that. As you discussed, India,
Right.
people who haven't traveled overseas, the level of road infrastructure can be vastly inferior. And then the complexity around countries with people with millions of bikes, millions of scooters, people driving on sidewalks, can be highly chaotic. In the mid 90s, when I was in Taiwan, which the road conditions have improved since then, but they had 70% of the people were driving around on scooters. And basically you could have like 3 marked lanes on the road, but then you would have just a sea of scooters. And it was literally like a sea, because if you had a blockage in the road, people would just keep driving around, like flowing around a river. So the lines meant nothing. Even sidewalks meant nothing. If you stepped out of a store or a building onto a sidewalk, you'd have to look left and right before you stepped out, or you could get hit by a scooter. So that kind of situation is completely different. And then road signs and other things were also meaningless.
Right.
So it's more about what is moving, because right now you can have a sign. The sign could be saying, okay, yes, that guy's going to stop. You may not be able to trust it. You have to look at, is that other car, is that other person still going? Because you have to assume that they're not going to behave. Like there were people, crossing when they wouldn't cross, shouldn't cross, all that kind of stuff. And you have to say, okay, I'm not going to run you over, even though you did the bad thing. I have to avoid the accident. So I think that the dynamic capability means the system has to handle the chaos of the real world, which is what it's doing.
I won't be shocked if they take some cities and say, we will not. It's kind of like when you rent a car in Hawaii and they say you can't take that rental car on these roads. I won't be shocked if Rome and Taipei and I've been in a few others. I'm trying to remember the ones that I just even not Lisbon, but Spain. Anyway, the capital of Spain. There's a few. Madrid, yes, Madrid. There's a few cities around the world that I will never drive in again. Madrid, I actually drove in, but I would not do it again. I parked my car as fast as I could and then took transportation.
China's a major market for them. If they can do China, that means they have to be able to do most of the places. So because, China's got bad roads, got bad drivers, and just they're new drivers. I'm Chinese. It's not because they're necessarily bad, but a lot of them are very new.
Yeah.
And a lot of the cities are just, chaotic, particularly if you're not in the top, what they call tier 1, tier 2 cities. If you're down to tier 3, tier 4, then they have things get rougher. Yeah. And being able to handle that, and they need to, because that's 30% of their cars are there. Then
that's a great place to transition into a subject I'd like to cover before this video is over. And that is Elon's statement, maybe as early as a year ago, maybe even more than a year ago, where he said Tesla is leading in AGI, and that the proof that they're leading in AGI is FSD, full self-driving. And, at the time, it was like one of those goes in your head and you go, well, duh, obviously they're leading in AGI. But now, this last week, when we've seen what's happening with 12.3, I've introduced this to really, really smart folks, really top folks that come on my channel and stuff that are experts. And everybody kind of gets the same aha moment. And that is, oh my gosh, Tesla is way ahead on AGI. They're so far ahead of, for instance, OpenAI or NVIDIA or some of these other companies that are working on AGI. The ability of this car to understand its world and react to multiple inputs in, as you mentioned, a fraction of a second. You look at some of the most advanced robots, and they're sitting there going, okay, But this car, it's got input from everywhere around it, 8 cameras, and it has to be able to do it instantly. And the result of a failure to do it instantly is potentially catastrophic.
So the actual metrics are it must sense the environment accurately, determine something about what's happening in like 1 to 5 milliseconds, and then it has to then form a plan, totally break it down, form a plan, and then start executing the plan in 0.1 seconds.
Right.
So those are the things that it has to be able to do in order to drive. That's what we have to do when we have to drive.
Right.
So that means, but if you compare that to OpenAI, ChatGPT, an amazing system for conversing, but it could take 5 seconds, typically, maybe even 30 seconds to make a decision, give you a response, start, laying out the text.
Right.
And, you don't have that time. Like the example for Figure AI, the really amazing video where it's like, what's on the table? I got an apple, I got this, I got that. There were long lags there. I'm sure they were using, GPT 4 point something or other on that machine to interpret the language.
Right.
So it was impressive stuff. But if you're in an environment, factory, car, real world, where that thing needs to not, move into traffic or dangerous machines or cause some problem, then it can't be, it walked into the person and did something for like 30, drag the person like the cruise thing, or you can't do that.
But even Brian, I was also thinking on the perception of the real world side too. So the robot, we were all impressed that it could perceive the things in front of it and speak what they were. That was so impressive. Everybody's knocked out. Oh my gosh. It can say there's an apple and there's a plate, and I'll put the plate into the drainer. But the car is having to recognize the entire real world around it in terms of dogs and cats and animals and buildings and curbs and markings on curbs and signage and what the signage says, or maybe not actually physically what it says, but recognizing that sign means X as opposed to something else. It has a massive of real world information that it has to understand and respond to immediately, like you said, within 5 milliseconds. Well, Brian, again, I think to wrap it up, Tesla is way ahead on FSD. There's nobody even in the ball game. And there's been a number of really like Robert Scoble and others that have been saying that on X over the last couple of days, that they're just in a completely different world. Then, in addition to that, I think it's very clear, even though this week was just an incredible week, this past 10 days has been unbelievable in terms of the tech that has been released, the stuff that Tesla has done, SpaceX has done, Neuralink has done, and even OpenAI and NVIDIA for those companies that are not part of the Elon Musk world. Unbelievable what's happened. But when it really comes down to it, FSD is the closest thing to AGI by a lot. And I think that's super interesting. Plus the ramifications that it might be this close to actually being introduced. So what are your last thoughts?
Yes, I think that be really telling the next few months. How much improvement is there in each release? Do we get to full introduction to everyone, all the FSD purchasers? And do they take it off beta at that point? there's many things that will be revealing what the future holds and how fast it's going to be coming. And the way all these things in AI work is it's not quite being able to play like Go or something complicated. It's doing very terrible, and then it's starting to do really good, and then it starts beating the masters, and then goes ahead. So the range of just below human to way better than human is actually not that big for these things. So getting up to as good as human, what we're discussing, is it quite human? That by itself means we could be very close to the end goal of way better than human.
All right. Hey, it's been great, Brian, as usual. So much fun to talk about all these advances and crazy stuff that we're living through. And for all of the audience out there, thanks so much for coming on board. And if you hit the like button, that'd be fantastic. And so, Brian, until next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.